you know, if this channel isn't like Deja Vu enough, this will really be like Deja Vu. Peppa Pig, yeah, that's what the channel is, isn't it?
Engage your brain, you're about to go into information mode.
Good morning, it's Tuesday morning, welcome back. My name's Matt. God, I hate saying that, but it's out there, I've said it, I'm on YouTube, we're there. Right, if you watched last week's video, big shout out, thank you for the new subscribers, really appreciate it. You'll notice at the end of the video I said that I had to take my wife to the dentist, had some odd jobs to do. Didn't do those because she was actually in quite a bit of pain, so I actually did those yesterday. I didn't film them. Basically something mental happened, which I couldn't film and I can't even talk about, but if you private message me I'll tell you. It's brilliant at a customer's house, absolutely mental. Anyway, what I did do though is I came in for like an hour yesterday afternoon. I've just been doing it this morning. I've been doing these integrated handles. So these are the panels, that's the back. What I'll do is I'll probably either chop that out square or I'll machine some oak and round the corner off and basically drop a full piece of oak in there. So when you look at the front of the handle, if you look at these, that's a better example. So when you're looking at those, there'll be a piece of oak in the background. What I'll do actually, I was going to include an image on the screen of the last job I did where I did this. It's the same template. And I'll also include on the screen now a timestamp to the last video I did when I did this stuff that kind of explains the process of doing it rather than, well, I didn't film anyway, so I can't show you. So yeah, no time machines on this channel. Right, what we're going to do? What we're going to do is, for those set of wardrobes, I am going to now get all my materials out of the rack. I've got a cut list. I'm going to cut all the components for this, which is for this set of wardrobes with the integrated handles. I think the handles might be on the picture. I don't know if I include them in the drawing. And I'm just going to assemble it and put it down here. So I'm just going to whack you on time lapse. I'm going to spend the rest of the day, even how long that is. I'm going to spend the rest of the day anyway doing that before I go get the kids. And that's it. Let's go. Right, good morning. It's Wednesday morning. Obviously that went into an extra day. Obviously that's why it's Wednesday. That's it though. So what I'll do is I'll whack up on the screen now basically what it is, because I'm not sure if I've included that. I'm sort of losing it really. But basically, yeah, sorry, it's wardrobe, drawers, gap with a push to open laptop drawer, another set of drawers, and like an open sort of display unit. And then on this artistic bit of filming you just saw, I don't know how well that turned out, but basically, you saw me banging this on. If you know, apologies if I'm sort of going through this again, because you know, if you've been watching my channel a while, you've probably seen me talk about this and refine this over the last few jobs. But I really do like this system. It's basically a plinth that fits in between the face frames. That's the key, because I was doing it originally and sometimes covering it over a face frame. Not that I ever need to get access to it, but especially when you're on carpet, it can be quite awkward to cover that detail of where you're doing fitted furniture onto carpet. So with this, I can get everything built, and then I can trim the bottom of the unit onto the carpet at the very end just by dropping this on. And also it's easy to remove rather than being underneath. It's easier to remove to get to the lights, because we've got lights in here. That's what this rebate's for. There'll be a light all the way underneath here. And then there's lights in here on both sides, lights for the drawers, and obviously these lights will do those drawers. That's quite a lot of lights, quite a lot of connections. I just like it to be accessible. Obviously you can have the lights under the drawers, but in this instance you've got a display cabinet. There's nowhere to hide the driver or connections unless you hide it in there, which means you've, in my opinion, you've then got to trail the lights all the way to there in case one of the connections goes wrong over time. And it's just, you know, if you need to put a new light in, you can't get to it. That's my thinking anyway, whether or not that's right or not. You'll notice as well with the lights that on these ones, that's like I think that's I don't know if these are 5 or 6s, but basically that is, you normally do that with the router and the track, but I did it with the track saw on this. I'm just going to keep doing it that way. It's a lot better, because with the router you've got to do it in 1 or 2 passes, well 2 or 3 passes, sorry. It's a lot of work for the router and you have to go quite slow. With the track saw, it's well, I suppose it's similar to a spindle moulder in a way. The way it's cutting better, it's cutting more efficiently. You've still got to do 2 or 3 passes because you've got to gain the width, but yeah, that doesn't take any longer. If anything, it's quicker because you run the track saw quicker. The only thing is you have the element of error by moving the track over. Yeah, and you'll notice as well, I did these, that one and that one first, then I did these 2 for second. That's purely because you have to take off this 19mm panel when you do all your measurements. So if you take that wardrobe for argument's sake, there's a top, a shelf, a middle brace for the drawers / shelf, and then a bottom, and they're all the same width, apart from the shelf obviously gets trimmed to get, needs to be a bit of slot, but they're all the same width, say. So you'd cut all them in one go out of one board, and it makes sense to cut them out of one board because you're using veneer board, you want it to all be the same sort of tone. But what the problem is that you quite often you'll use so when you're using a panel saw, on here you've got like a cut list. So when you're doing all your cutting, you want to utilise the fact you're doing all 5 sort of 6/10s or whatever all at the same time, rather than keep moving your fence. I mean, my cut list is just a scrap of paper. Did actually have a Peppa Pig wipeable board at one point off my little girl, but yeah, I haven't got that anymore. What's it doing? Lost it. Peppa Pig, yeah. Yeah, that's what I was doing. Absolutely losing the plot. Basically, I did it in 2 different goes because I tried that way, the way I normally do it, which is cutting them all in one go and then dominoing it all the same, because the thing is you use like presets on the domino, presets on the pocket hole machine to do them all in the same place, so it's all nice and uniform and it all goes back together right. And then prior to assembly, what I would normally do then is I would just take off the difference. So I'd take off, in this case, I'd take off 19mm for that, I'd take off whatever I've allowed to go back behind the light for that, and then that I'd take off whatever I've allowed to clear the hinges or whatever I'm working around. So it's like you're cutting it again. So I thought, I wonder if there's a way of doing it. You cut it the first time. So on these ones, I cut them all the size they need to be the first time. Also, I don't know if you can see, but I've actually left this quite short, and that's because I've got a light to go through here. And I noticed when I've done these before, I brought this right to it, and you've got to channel it out for the light. So I thought I'll just send it back. Anyway, the bottom one, I just cut that size already, and then when I dominoed it in that and pocket holder, I just used an offcut for reference, so that I was only cutting it once. And as long as I remember to throw that in, my domino hole lines lined up with the cabinet edges, so it all works pretty well. Yeah. How interesting you found that, I don't know. And yeah, the time that saved me, to be honest with you, I think I've just lost explaining it to you. So I guess really, if it was of any interest, or you at least watched it, maybe just at least subscribe for me, will you? Because there might be a small chance I can recoup some of my lost time. One day. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to basically put on all the face frames, all the end panels, everything, get all that done. It'll all be oversized, ready to be scribed in. I'll get all that done, and then that means that I can then quickly offer on my drawer fronts to where they're going to go, work out my drawer heights for my drawer boxes, and because you've got to allow the thickness of the drawer runner, and like there's little quirks and stuff you've got to allow for the drawing as you're using, which I've got upstairs. So basically I'll get all that done. That means I can at least make a start. So for the rest of the day I'll make a start cutting the drawer boxes. I'm not going to do any assembling, I probably won't do any filming, because I was going to prime today, but I realised these doors here, I haven't bloody got the bead. I was supposed to put a bead on the inside of them, and I haven't done the cornice for the top, and I was going to run something out, but I haven't really got any softwood, so I'm like, I'll just pick some bead up in the morning. I might even glue all those on, which means I can then spray tomorrow, spray prime tomorrow, spray prime Friday, and then top coat Monday, Tuesday, something like that. It won't quite work out like that because I've got other bits and bobs to do, but in the downtime of the spraying, because I do all the spraying upstairs, like, you know, sort of do that in-house if you like. In that downtime I can make all the veneer work, all the floating shelves, the desk, the drawers. I can do all the stuff that isn't getting sprayed, so it just means I can just come down, and really, if I've worked out all my measurements, which I will have done, or at least done like a rough cut list, I can just nip down. Even if I spent 3 hours, you'd be amazed how many drawers you can assemble in like 3 hours. So yeah, we'll get that done really. That's it really, yeah. I see like little things like this. I've still got to either square these corners out, or whatever I've got to do. I've got to drop a solid piece of oak in there, just like it'd be a 2.5mm piece of oak that sits in there that gets glued in. Yeah, there's loads. There's always something to do it. That's the thing. That's the reality of it. There's always something to bloody do. How do you feel about this though? You might have noticed with the old professional filming. I mean, I was going to come up with like an aluminium, like a bit of extruded aluminium along there. Obviously, this will get made proper at some point with like mounts for the GoPro, so I could slide them along. And then I thought, nah, just screw an offcut of wood on with a GoPro mount on. Look, get any angle you want with that. That's basically a boom. Right, cool. Speak to you in a bit. Good morning, it's Thursday morning. What have I been up to? You've seen what I've been up to. I've been putting these beads on. So I'll put these beads on these doors here. It's I actually went to Travis and picked up a load of beads and I got it at a decent price, to be fair. It's not really worth it running out, is it? Over 30 metres of beading. I've glued plenty of bead on before on panelling and on some doors, never had any issues. I've also, with my old workshop, had the router table permanently set up for rail and style joints, and you used to be able to incorporate the beading, some moulding in some of my rail and style joint bits. I don't have a huge selection of those for the spindle moulder. I've only really got them for the router. I've got a router collet for the spindle moulder, but I just can never be bothered to change it. And the lady, and most of my work, when I'm doing the job, the customer actually rings and sends me a picture of what they want, and I then make it based on that. I redraw it, make it based on that. And in this instance, it was quite a big bead, far bigger than one that you get on one of those profile sets. So yeah, that's what I've done. I've glued it on. But I thought I'd just quickly show you this. So this is a board that it's not the original one. The original one, I don't know where it is. The original one had more cuts on it because I used it for quite an intricate panelling job years ago, and it was screwed into the bed of the saw. So I know this isn't the original one, but I've used it in this workshop before because those screws lined up with some existing holes in the top. Basically, the idea of this being that you set your trench cut. Although this is a really old miter saw, brilliant bit of kit, to be fair, this old DeWalt. I am going to get rid of it all, but yeah, but then yeah, and then if I ever need the miter saw, I'll just bring the Kapex in, or I've got another miter saw upstairs, you know. But anyway, basically this sort of beading arrangement here, the way it works is you set the trench cut so that it never goes all the way through the board. And then that gives you like a nice little score line, and that score line is a really good like visual indication of where you're cutting the bead to. It doesn't matter where you mark it, what side of the line. I know a lot of miter saws, like my Kapex has got the laser mark on it. My other DeWalt's got the shadow line technology, which is actually pretty accurate. Well, it's obviously accurate because it's just a shadow. But this is, you know, as accurate, and more importantly, you don't get any blowout. So sometimes like tear out the back of the piece, especially when you're cutting bead. That last little bit sometimes can just blow out, you know, no matter how good your blade is. Whereas if you've got like a backing board, it's a bit like a zero clearance fence really in that respect. So these are, you know, what's that? That's all done out of scraps. I probably knocked that up in about 5 minutes, probably 4 or 5 years ago. I've got another one somewhere, which I don't know where that is. Probably for a different miter saw actually. And the amount of jobs that's gone through, it's worth knocking something like that up. Yeah, so I actually had some timber on the other side of there. Oh, there's like another bit that I've got. So in there I've got like an old bandsaw. I've actually got an old table saw. I've got like so much stuff in there. It's just I probably will never actually set it up. But I've got a load of softwood in there as well, which I forgot about. So I've got some freebie softwood, and I basically managed to run that on the spindle moulder. Stand that actually looking at that. The joys of putting the camera on something you can actually see. Yeah, so basically yeah, I've run that through on the spindle moulder because I've got a bit that just does that in one go. I think it's a weather bar bit. I don't think it's like a pig's ear, but it's not as big. I don't know what it is anyway. I've got the number of the cutter obviously, but yeah, so I've run that out and then I just glued a parting bead, pine parting bead. I had some parting bead left up in the rack when I sorted that out the other day. I found that, so I already had it in my mind that I could make something up. Yeah, so I basically run those two out, run out enough in bits to basically do them, and I've pre-mitered them and glued them, pocket screwed them from the back, and I'm basically going to now drop a 19mm strip all the way along there, because on the top of my wardrobes on these ones I've left it 18mm, the face frame's 18mm higher, so I'll glue and screw a 19mm strip on that now. And then by the time I drop all that on, before I put my face frames on, because it's going to be awkward to get that in and over the face frame, I can put it all on beforehand and it'll be set 1mm higher, which will just give me a little shadow detail, which will look quite nice, I think. Right, then that's all I'm going to do today, apart from obviously take it up into the spray room and prime it all, which I'm not going to film because I'm just not. Why am I walking around there? Yeah, and I've turned this light out. It bothers me. I like it being really light in here. It's not that light. Right, okay, cool. I will see you in a bit.
Well, good morning. It's Friday morning. I've just been in the workshop this morning for a couple of hours. I had to meet someone, sort them out with some kit for something, and I've been spray priming. So that's all the priming done, just on one side. I was doing it and I was thinking, why did I buy the pre-prime boards? Because I'm just spraying it like normal anyway. I mean, it's going to make it easier to denib, but I've still got to cast my eye on it, and still got to go over it all anyway. You can't just like, you can't leave it. You can't like not denib it if it's already been primed, and you can't spray the edges without getting it on the face. So you've got to denib that. I don't know what I was thinking really, but I think I was just a little bit curious as to the quality of the products I'm using. You know, just unnecessary really. That is dangerous. What are you doing down there? Yeah. Anyway, so I'm just going to go out to get a bite to eat. Not really sure why I'm telling you that. Lost the plot, haven't I? Lost the track. What am I talking about? Yes. So I'm going to go back in the workshop this afternoon, and I will be making the drawers and stuff. I'm probably not going to film it though, because I've done quite a bit of me making drawers, chatting about that. I might pick you up when I do the desk and the shelf, but I won't start that today, I don't think. I'll just be doing the boring process of cutting all the drawers. I mean, I've got like, how many drawers have I got to cut? I've got to I've got to make like 3, 6, 8, 9 drawers. So yeah, it's quite a lot of components I've got to cut and do the dados and whatnot. Anyway, what I might do is though, if I do get a chance, I might pick you back up if I get like 15 minutes spare where I can just show you something basically. Yeah, that's what you call a cliffhanger actually. That is that Alison? No, that's what you call a cliffhanger. Yeah, so now you've got to watch till the end of the video, ain't you? All these people that switch off early, although this is the end of the week, you got to wait till the end now. You got to wait. It's not even really waiting, it's just when I finish talking, it will probably go straight into that, so it's not really waiting. This is now suspense. That's what I'm doing. We've done cliffhanger and now we're in suspense mode. So engage your brain, you're about to go into information mode.
And he's back, just like that. Yeah, I've only got about 15 minutes, got to make this really, really quick. We're going to talk about the LR32 now. Massive, huge apologies if I've already spoke about this. I must have done at some point. I was going to do like a independent review video of the LR32, but I just don't have got the time, to be honest with you. So it's been on my mind for a while, and I think I've sort of, as I normally do, waffled on a little bit about it on some of my videos. So if you've come across it, you know, if this channel isn't like deja vu enough, this will really be like deja vu. Also, if you fast forwarded to this bit of the video, because of the bit at the beginning, you were looking for the LR32 review, talk about, whatever you want to call it, you've missed some absolute gold, so, you know, shame on you. Right, here we are. We've got the holes here for the LR32, that's in this set of cabinets, and I've got holes in this cabinet here for the LR32. You'll notice two things, what you would have done, that I don't do my holes all the way down, and I don't utilise, so this one's got some hinges on, hasn't it, because I had these doors on. I don't utilise the hinge holes for the, I don't utilise the LR32 for the hinge holes. Get your words out, Matt. Well, I'm waiting on the bench now. We're going to get the LR32 out. I'm probably not going to drill some holes because I've only got 15 minutes. So we're going to chat about it and I'll explain why I do and why I don't do that, and the advantages and disadvantages of the system and what I've brought basically. Okay, so when you buy the LR32 system, you get given a couple of choices. You can basically buy kit, which I'll put up on the screen now, and in that kit you get well, for a start you get a sustainer, you get the plate in there, you get a whole bunch of little accessories and gizmos, which I'm going to sort of touch upon as part of this, and you get 3 cutters. You get a cutter that goes all the way through, like a blind cutter, you get a cutter that just does the standard shelf pin holes, and you get a hinge hole cutter. When I brought mine, I'll put that up on the screen now, I brought just this basically. So you get the plate, instruction book, and you get a couple of little, you get a couple of little knobs, and those knobs basically attach router to the plate. The only downside is if you're using the 1400 router, and anyone that uses Festool routers, you'll know that the main selling point is the dust port and just how easy things go together. The little wings, if you like, that go on and tighten it, they get in the way of the little lever that clamps the dust port on. So you can't use those, unfortunately. However, it's not really much of a hardship because there is also a lining screws underneath. You can only go one way, which I think is that way. And you just have to put some M6 screws in. I'm sort of talking about this because I'm fairly confident this kit I bought, the one that I just put up on the screen, the last one, didn't come with these screws. It's not a big deal, but yeah, didn't come with the screws, so you have to go and buy your own screws. Right, so once you get that attached, the next job is to centre it to the collet of the router. Now, again, my kit doesn't come with the mandrel, which you centre it with, which I didn't know was that important. It turns out it's not. But when I first started using this kit, I didn't like it. I was having no end of problems. Since then, I have managed to get a mandrel. It's not the exact right one. But it is close. There's a little bit of slop in the holder, but it's pretty close. It's close enough to eyeball it to get, you can eyeball the rest, and also because it's not like you're joining the worktop, where you got to get it exact. Although you do want it exact, obviously, but not exact. Basically, there's a removable guide bush that clicks into the Festool routers. That's almost near on the same size as that hole, so you can actually eyeball it to that as well. And since I've adjusted to it, which I'll go through at the end of the video, I've never had any problems with any shelves bouncing around. But originally I did. And I thought it was because I didn't have the mandrel, hence me trying to acquire a mandrel afterwards. You obviously got the rail. Now with the kit, the first kit I put online, you get these little almost like flag stops, which basically are designed to set this rail in X amount from the cupboard edge, so that when you put the router in there, the hole location is, let's get this right, 37 mil in, because the standard sort of European approach is that you have your shelf pin holes and your hinge holes on the same line. That's 37 mil because they're using the Euro screws, which are 5 mil, and the shelf pins are 5 mil. I don't necessarily always go by that because I don't use this to do my hinge locations, because a lot of my cabinets have got face frames and the cabinets might be offset to clear something or whatnot, or might be broken up with multiple doors. And I think, to be honest with you, I'm sure most people are the same. They're just building their cabinets to whatever size the customer wants, what you've drawn, and then you put your hinges where you put your hinges. You can also use it for the drawer in the system, but again, my drawer fronts are set to what I think visually looks good for the room. So, yeah, I don't need to be exactly on that line because I'm not utilising those hinge holes for these holes for the hinge holes. But what you do need is you need them to be uniform. You want them to be X amount in from the front and X amount in from the back. Now, having the Festool system and having those flag stops or whatever you want to call them on doesn't really help, because if you're putting a rebate, as I do in some of my cupboards, for like a false panel, you've then got to change it. So my money was always like, well, I'd rather just use what I've always got. Having said that, it hasn't got one, is a tape measure. I know that it's 25 mil from the edge of the splinter strip to the centre of the router bit. That never changes. Once I figured that out, it was 25 mil out, that'll never change because it's always in the same place. That's obviously always, going to stay the same size. So it's always 25 mil in. And whatever you want to set it to, you can then just, so if you did want to set it to 37, if that was your system, you do 37, add 25, you measure, do a pencil mark, or you could be a little bit cleverer and you could use a combi square, set that up so it's preset, or most carpenters are used to doing stuff like this, make a little jig. Slide a little jig on there, exact preset. You could even cut that in half and throw that in your Festool box. Now, or you could as well
anyone that's got rails might already have this system where you've got like the Festool make one, and this is a bench dog one, woodpecker make one, just so you can do repeat cuts and things. You could use that so you're referencing off the back of the cabinet, but again you'd have the same problem then that you would when you turn it round. If you've got a back panel, it would be in a different place, whereas this system you could just rest that into the back panel groove if there was a back panel groove, so when you turn it round it's in the right place. My money's always on that system. I kind of feel like all of this, or the Festool ones that come with it, they're all just unnecessarily complicated, and also they make the rail quite cumbersome and hard to handle. So your next thing that comes in the Festool box is a way of setting the rail at a repeat point. Again, I don't have that, so I don't use it. Also, that is really, as far as I'm aware, that is designed for the fact that your cabinets will be cut using the 32mm system. So this cabinet is 655, that's not a division of 32. So you'd have to have a division of 32, which I don't know what that would be. Hang on. Right, so 655 divided by 32, it's 20.4, so 21 times 32, 672. So if this cabinet was 672, if that finished there, then you'd have shelf pin, pardon me, you'd have shelf pin bits that drop in the holes that would basically centralise that, so that it would always be an equal amount of holes in from each end, and it would just constantly be clicked onto the carcass edge. Pardon me. Sorry, coughing fit. Right. Yeah, basically, for me, just not necessarily. What I use most of the time when I'm using, you've probably seen the videos, I'll whack on the trap to the rail square. Now, I'm working with this system because these are the things I've already got, but I've also noticed they make it easier anyway, because if you put that on and then you put that on there, sliding that along there all of a sudden becomes very easy, because the reality is it's always going to be square. So as anyone knows, you're doing this sort of stuff when you're setting it originally, you'll get that end right, and then you'll come around here to set that end and you'll move it, this end will have moved again. So if you just leave that on, when it's butt up to it, when you're sliding it forward and backwards, you can see it's sort of staying right, staying true, just with a little bit of control with your hands. Right, so once that's on, let's just say you've got a viewing window you see on the Festool router just there. Let's just say put a pencil mark there and a pencil mark there. And then you know you're going to click your router on. Obviously you can clamp it, and just for the purposes of the video I'm putting it in the middle of the bench. And you go along, and this is really where the Festool, this is why I brought it, just for that speed of doing it. Obviously you plunge it in between each one until you see your pencil mark again. And then when you see your pencil mark again, you take it out. But this is where, A, not having your cabinet set to the 32 increments, and B, I guess like maybe not having the Festool box, the first bit of kit. I don't know how it would change this. I don't know what comes in that box that would change this, but all I know is you can't then come along here, because you need to be referencing off here and put it down, because it falls out. So you've got a couple of choices. Because this thing here sticks out a bit, you can have a board clamped to your thing and you can rest it on that. I've tried it. It doesn't really. It's a bit of a pain. Obviously you've got to turn your rail around. Ultimately, that's what I'm getting at. You've got to turn your rail around. Turn your rail around. Put that on there. Slide her over. You're in the right place. But you can't then go to the same holes, because they'd have been in a slightly different place to that, because those were referenced off there. And I haven't centralised the holes. I didn't waste time and energy centralising the holes. So what you do, slide it over, put this in here, and there it goes. Like that. And whatever these measurements were,
So that's 365. Measure that one, 620, which is there. Now these rails, well, my one it is anyway, that is the exact same distance there as it is off there, that hole to the edge and that hole to the edge. So I know when I'm measuring in and I'm marking to the nearest hole to whatever my measurements were, I know that it's right. I can't imagine Festool making their rails where they're slightly off centre. Everything's so uniform what they make. So now all you've got to do is remember it's those two marks, and when you come in the other way, it's those two marks. Or you can number them, can't you? Or we can put a bit of masking tape there. In fact, it's not a bad shout to put masking tape in that groove. It is actually a little bit of a rebate, so this would slide over the masking tape. It's not a bad shout to put masking tape in there because these pencil marks are a pain to rub out, especially the older the rail gets. So yeah, do that. Now, the reason, this is what I really wanted to talk about, the reason why I think that is a much better system, I'll do it just so we can put it there so it's in the middle so you can see, because if you number these, you can also put an arrow on each one, because the most important thing, so when you're going, so let's just turn it around quickly so that I did it the right way, just so I don't confuse. That clicks in there, that goes over to there, that goes on there. In my menu, that's quicker than using the little flag stops. That goes on there. Right, okay, I've got my first pencil mark inside my viewing window, and my second pencil mark will pop up in my viewing window. So what I want to do is I want to put an arrow on it, going that way, and an arrow going that way, because I'm going to go that way, okay? And then you're going to do all your holes, you know, down, do all your holes, and you're always going that way. And then, when you come around here, and you put this in, line it up so it's flush with the edge. Sorry, bloody battery cut out. Right, so we're back on. No, but I can't redo it because I've only got so much time. Very, very sorry, it's not very professional. Basically, so I've already done the pencil marks because I've already just filmed this, so this should be seamless, apart from that little explanation. Basically, when you drop your router on and you're back in your viewing window, what's happened here? When you drop your router on and you're back in your viewing window, you want to put a little arrow on going the way you're going, which is this way, because you always want to be travelling the same direction. So that's where having the original Festools, the Festool system in the box, it doesn't matter how clever your flag stops are, or your little stoppers and bits, there's nothing, I don't think, in that box telling you that you should always be travelling in the same direction. And the danger of that being, if you've centralised your rail and you're plunging, you might be tempted to go along, plunge, go along, plunge, go along, plunge, come out, you know, just move the rail along, go along, or turn it round, but you go along, plunge, go along, plunge, go along, plunge. With this little pencil mark system, drawing your arrows, it's reminding you that you've got to be going in the same direction, because if you look at that, there's a tiny bit of slop, which there has to be. You know, when I first bought this system, that kind of bugged me, but I didn't realise that was adding up to be a problem. Because what it is if you're slopping that way a little bit and you're clicking, going in, and you go to the next one, every time you're butting up to there and you're plunging, if you did the same on that side, that to me is almost the best part of a millimetre. So if you're a millimetre out there and a millimetre out there, all of a sudden your shelves are 2 millimetres out, your shelf pin holes. And when you've got the other side of the cabinet, and you could have done that opposite, you end up with a shelf that is like constantly wibbling and rocking. So the first few jobs I did, I was noticing my shelves weren't perfect, and I'm thinking, well, I just spent a load of money on the rail. The rail's not cheap, and this bit of kit. I mean, obviously I didn't buy the full kit, and I couldn't work it out. It might tell you in the book, I don't know, but who reads the book? I mean, to be honest with you, I do like to read all the manuals and things, but I ain't got that much time to be reading every single one I own. So basically, when you go along, you're butting up, you're going that way. That's why having these pencil marks There's no harm in that, and I can't see, personally, unless you built all your cabinets at increments of 32mm, but I don't think people are doing that. Unless I'm wrong, I think people are just building all their cabinets at whatever sizes, and then they're whacking this rail on, and I think they're measuring and marking most of the time, because as chippers we used to measuring and marking. So if you're doing that, why do you need the full kit? The only reason I can think that people are using it for is for setting the front and the back, but to me, just do that. How about that for quick filming? Yeah, I'm actually 5 minutes late now. I really wanted to do a good job of that video. I really thought about what I was going to do, but then I just didn't have time to actually, write down what I was going to do and take my time and do it. But that's what the channel is, isn't it? If you got this far, thanks a lot. Pat yourself on the back. You've done well. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. And what was I going to say? The purpose of that really was just to say, I actually think this system, I think it's a brilliant system. I really do think it's a fantastic system. When I first bought it, I didn't think I was a bit underwhelmed. And I think when I first bought it, I was like, I've either made a mistake not buying the full kit, or thank God I didn't buy the full kit, because it's not quite as sort of streamlined as you think. Because I have used the drill ones before. You can buy like ones like an aluminium plate. You can probably get them on Temu now, to be honest with you. And they've got a little guide bush in there, and it comes with a special drill bit that's like a little collar on. You just go and drill them all. I've used them. They're brilliant. They're accurate, but they're bloody messy, and it's not really the best dust to be breathing in, is it? MDF dust. Let's be honest. Whereas these, there's no dust. And it is quick. It's probably as quick, apart from you've got to get all the kit out. That's the thing. You've got to get the kit out, and you've got to screw the thing to the router. They're only little things, but it's a bit easier to get a drill out, isn't it? That's what I'm sort of coming from. And I just think it's unnecessarily complicated with all the gizmos and stuff you have to whack on it. Whereas really, I just like getting the rail out, a couple of measurements, a couple of pencil marks, clamp it on, away we go. But I was just frustrated the first few times I used it, because I was doing that. I was taking longer to measure and mark it, because every time I was thinking, I was coming up with so many different ways of where to measure to and from. I was thinking, why are my shelves wobbling? All it is you've got to make sure that the router's always going in the same direction on the board. So it doesn't matter what direction it's going on the rail, it's on the board. So really what you could do is put a sticker on your board and put an arrow on your board, just showing that you're always going to go that way. But what I do is I just put arrows on my marks, and then when I'm going off these marks, I've got arrows going that way. I mean, it's not, just spent like 15-minute video talking about 1.5 mil worth of tolerance on a shelf pinhole. So that is really what the channel is, isn't it? Right. See you next week.